Admiral Alan Shepard stood on the bridge of the flagship U.S. Dauntless, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The massive view screen before him showed something humanity had dreamed of for centuries: an alien spaceship. It hung against the blackness of space, its smooth purple hull gleaming in the sun's light. Unlike the boxy, practical design of Earth's vessels, this ship looked like living art. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Lieutenant Frank Davis from his communications station. Shepard nodded. "Put them through." The alien that appeared on screen had blue-tinted skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It called itself HFY, Ambassador of the Galactic Confederation. "We are pleased to make contact with your species," HFY said in perfect English, the result of their advanced translation technology. "The Confederation welcomes Earth to join our alliance of 57 spacefaring civilizations." 2 weeks later, Shepard led a delegation of Earth's top officials on a tour of the Confederation's diplomatic vessel. The aliens moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy in comparison. Their technology seemed like magic: doors that opened before you thought to approach them, lights that adjusted to your exact preference, and gravity that felt perfectly natural despite being artificial. "We are impressed that your species has achieved faster-than-light travel with your limited resources," said HFY as they walked through gleaming corridors. "It speaks to your determination." Shepard heard the condescension beneath the polite words. He'd been a military man for 30 years. He knew when someone was looking down on him. The Earth delegation arrived at a vast observation deck. Through the transparent wall, they could see Earth's modest fleet of 12 starships arranged in formation. Next to them floated 3 Confederation vessels, each one easily 4 times larger and infinitely more elegant. "Your ships are quite functional," said a tall, thin alien named Grell, who served as the Confederation's military attaché. His upper eyes blinked in what Shepard had learned was their equivalent of a smirk. "Very industrial. They get the job done," Shepard replied evenly. "Of course," said HFY smoothly. "Every young species begins somewhere." The diplomatic meeting continued with talks about Earth joining the Confederation as a probationary member. Shepard mostly listened as politicians from both sides discussed terms. His focus remained on the subtle reactions of the aliens whenever Earth's military capabilities were mentioned. Later that day, it was Earth's turn to host. The alien delegation boarded the U.S. Intrepid, Earth's newest battleship. Captain Olivia Martinez led the tour, proudly showing off the vessel's features. The aliens were polite, but their body language revealed their thoughts. They were not impressed. "These manual backup systems seem primitive," commented Grell, looking at the physical switches and controls that lined many walls. "Sometimes simple is better than fancy," Martins answered with a smile. "Your life support seems excessively redundant," noted another alien, peering at a schematic. 3 separate systems. "Space is dangerous," Martins said. "We like to be prepared." When they reached the weapons bay, Grell couldn't contain a small noise that the translator didn't catch, but sounded suspiciously like a chuckle. "Is something funny?" Shepard asked directly. "Not at all." HFY intervened quickly. "We are merely surprised by your approach to ship design. The Confederation has certain standards, but your vessels show great potential for improvement once you join us." At the end of the tour, the aliens gathered near their shuttle. "We look forward to welcoming Earth into the Confederation," HFY said. "With our guidance, perhaps your next generation of ships will be more suitable." As the alien shuttle departed, Martinez moved to stand beside Shepard. "They think our ships are jokes," she said quietly. Shepard's eyes narrowed as he watched the elegant alien vessel disappear into the darkness of space. "Let them laugh," he replied. "They don't understand humans yet." 6 months passed since first contact. Earth had officially joined the Galactic Confederation as a probationary member. Commander Olivia Martinez stood at attention on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, now assigned as Earth's representative to the upcoming Confederation fleet exercise. 1 hour until the briefing. Commander," said Lieutenant Steve Collins, her navigation officer. Martinez nodded. "Make sure all systems are at full capacity. I want us ready to show these aliens what humans can do." The Defiant docked at the massive Confederation station called Unity Point. The station itself dwarfed Earth's largest orbital platforms, a spinning wheel of gleaming metal and pulsing lights. Ships of various designs from dozens of alien species moved around it like colorful fish. In the main briefing room, military officers from 20 different species gathered. Martines and her small team of humans entered last. The room quieted briefly as the aliens turned to look at them. Some expressions were curious, others dismissive. General Krivax of the Arcturus Imperium stood at the front. He was a massive being with red-scaled skin and a neck frill that expanded when he spoke. He looked directly at the human delegation. "Ah, our newest members have arrived," he said. His translator made his voice sound deep and rumbling. "Welcome to your first fleet exercise. I trust you will find it educational." Several alien officers made sounds that the translation devices interpreted as laughter. "We're eager to participate, General," Martines replied, keeping her voice level. "Indeed." Krivax's frill rippled in what the humans had learned was amusement. "Your ships will be assigned to defensive positions in Sector 7. You will observe and provide support where needed." Martinez frowned. Sector 7 was far from the main action. It was a polite way of sidelining them. "With respect, General," she said, stepping forward. "Earth's fleet is ready for full participation in the exercise." The room grew quiet. Krivax's yellow eyes narrowed. "Your enthusiasm is noted, Commander," he said coldly. "But these exercises involve complex maneuvers refined over thousands of years. Your primitive vessels would be at risk." "We understand the risks," Martinez insisted. A delegate from the Proxima Alliance, a blue-skinned humanoid named Velex, spoke up. "Perhaps we should let the humans try, Krivax. It would be instructive for them." More translated laughter. Martinez felt her face grow hot, but kept her expression neutral. After the briefing, Martinez returned to the Defiant and called for an emergency meeting with Admiral Shepard via secure quantum communication. "They're treating us like children at the adults' table," she told him. "They've assigned us to a sector where nothing happens." Shepard's image flickered slightly on the screen. "Not unexpected. What do you propose?" "A bold strategy. Something they won't see coming." Martines leaned forward. "Request permission to implement Operation Trojan Horse." Shepard was quiet for a moment. "That's risky. The fleet exercise is supposed to be about cooperation, not showing them up." "With respect, sir, they need to see what we can do. Otherwise, we'll never be taken seriously." The Admiral rubbed his chin. "Very well. Permission granted. But be careful, Commander. We're still the new kids on the block." The next morning, Lieutenant Commander Gary Wright arrived on the Defiant with a small team of tactical specialists. While the Confederation ships prepared with elaborate ceremonies and formal fleet reviews, the human vessels underwent quick, practical modifications. "Are we ready, Commander Wright?" Martines asked as they walked through the ship. "Yes, Mom. The Defiant, Valiant, and Intrepid are all prepared. No one will see us coming." Martinez smiled. "Good. We need Captain Donna Lee and the U.S. Valiant to lead the decoy operation. Tell her to make it flashy enough to draw attention." As the exercise start time approached, Martinez gathered her crew on the bridge. "Today, we're not just representing Earth," she said. "We're showing the Confederation that appearances can be deceiving. They think our ships are jokes. Let's show them how humans really fight." The fleet exercise began with a spectacular display of alien technology. Hundreds of ships from various Confederation species filled the star system. Their vessels moved in perfect formation, shooting beams of colored light to mark simulated attacks. It looked more like a dance than warfare. Lieutenant Commander Gary Wright watched from the bridge of the U.S. Intrepid, one of Earth's smaller vessels. "They're putting on quite a show," said Lieutenant Amy Patel, his weapons officer. Wright nodded. "That's all it is, A show. Real battles aren't this pretty. In the center of the system, the main alien fleets engaged in what looked like an elegant ballet. Ships moved in complex patterns, firing weapons set to training power. The simulation was structured as a capture-the-flag scenario. Each fleet had a base to defend while trying to capture others. Meanwhile, the human ships moved quietly to their assigned position in Sector 7, the farthest area from the main action. All ships in position, reported Lieutenant Joe Ramirez. Valiant confirms they're ready for Operation Trojan Horse. Good, Wright said. Tell Captain Lee she can begin the decoy maneuvers. The U.S. Valiant suddenly broke formation and began moving in an erratic pattern. The ship fired several training bursts in random directions, making it look like they were struggling with their weapon systems. On the main Confederation command ship, General Kravax noticed the strange behavior. "What are those humans doing?" he asked, his neck frill expanding in irritation. "It appears they're having technical difficulties," replied Velex of the Proxima Alliance. "Perhaps their targeting systems are malfunctioning." "How amusing," Kravax said. Just as expected from such primitive vessels. While all eyes were on the Valiant's chaotic movements, Wright's team implemented the real plan. The Intrepid and 5 smaller Earth vessels powered down most of their systems. With minimal life support and engines running at less than 5%, they began drifting toward a debris field created by earlier simulated battles. "Power levels at minimum," reported Chief Engineer Paul Rivera. "We're running silent." "Heat signatures masked," added Lieutenant Pottle. "The debris field is covering our approach." Wright smiled. "Perfect. Now we drift." The reduced power made the human ships nearly invisible to Confederation sensors. Those few readings that did register looked like floating debris. It was a tactic born from centuries of submarine warfare on Earth, hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, Captain Donna Lee continued her performance with the Valiant. She ordered her crew to send out confused communications and appear increasingly disorganized. The alien observers found it entertaining, exactly as planned. "The humans seem to be withdrawing their ships," reported an alien officer to Kravax. "The Valiant appears to be covering their retreat." Kravax made a dismissive gesture. As expected, they recognized their inferiority. Let them go back to their sector and observe how real space navies operate. What no one noticed was Wright's small flotilla silently drifting deeper into enemy territory. The human ships used the massive debris field as cover, looking like nothing more than broken pieces from the exercise. "Status report," Wright whispered, though there was no need to be quiet in space. "We're approaching the rear of the Arcturus defense line," replied Ramirez. "Their attention is fully on the main battle." "And our special packages? Ready for deployment?" "Sir." Earth's ships carried small, unmanned drones designed to look like debris. Each contained a simple transmitter that could mimic Confederation identification signals. Wright's team had studied the alien communication protocols carefully. "Deploy the drones," Wright ordered. "Set them to emit Blue Team IFF signals." The drones quietly separated from the human ships, drifting toward the enemy's rear position. In the chaos of the main battle, no one noticed these small objects. They would soon create confusion by making each side think the other had units where they didn't. Phase 1 complete, Wright reported to Commander Martinez on the Defiant. "Moving to Phase 2. Martinez's voice came through the secure channel. "Excellent. The pieces are in place. Now let's show them how humans fight." Dr. Susan Kelly wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked inside the cramped engineering section of the U.S. Relentless. As chief engineer, she had spent years designing the systems that made Earth's fleet different from any other in the galaxy. "How are the backup generators holding up?" she asked her assistant, Ben Harris. "All green, Doctor," he replied. "Triple redundancy systems functioning perfectly." Kelly nodded with satisfaction. While the Confederation ships boasted about their advanced technology, human engineers had focused on creating systems that could survive when everything went wrong. Every critical system on the Relentless had at least 3 backup methods. If the main computer failed, they could switch to manual controls. If power was lost, they had multiple generators that could be cranked by hand if necessary. On the bridge, Captain Rick Martinez watched the main exercise playing out on their tactical display. The Relentless was maintaining position in Sector 7, appearing to follow orders while secretly supporting Wright's stealth mission. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "Admiral Gonzalez is sending new orders from Earth Command." Martinez reviewed the message and smiled. "It's time for the next phase. Alert Dr. Kelly to prepare for the EMP scenario." According to the exercise schedule, a simulated electromagnetic pulse was planned as a surprise challenge. The Confederation ran these exercises like elaborate games, with scripted events to test reactions. What they didn't know was that Earth had intercepted the schedule. Back on Earth, Admiral Peter Gonzalez sat in the underground command center, monitoring the exercise with his staff. "All ships confirm they're ready for the EMP," reported his aide. Gonzalez nodded. "Now we'll see what they think of our primitive designs." In space, the exercise continued. The elegant alien ships maneuvered through complex formations, their weapon systems firing in choreographed patterns. Suddenly, exercise controllers activated the EMP simulation. A signal went out that required all ships to shut down systems that would have been affected by a real electromagnetic pulse. Across the battlefield, Confederation ships went dark as they complied with the simulation. Their crews began the standard recovery procedures, expecting to be offline for at least 30 minutes according to exercise rules. On the Confederation command ship, General Kravax watched with satisfaction. This was his favorite part of the exercise, testing recovery protocols after a major systems failure. "All fleets report standard shutdown," an officer informed him. "Recovery operations beginning." "Excellent," Kravax replied. "This is where discipline shows." He stopped mid-sentence, staring at the tactical display. "Why are those ships still active?" he demanded, pointing at several small blips that continued moving. The officer checked his readings. "Sir, those are the human vessels. They appear unaffected by the EMP simulation." "Impossible," Kravax snapped. "Send a message reminding them of exercise protocols." On the Relentless, Dr. Kelly and her team were busy activating their special modifications. While other ships went dark, Earth's vessels switched to their backup systems designed specifically for EMP scenarios. "Faraday shielding holding," reported Harris. "Isolated circuit paths engage." Kelly smiled as she flipped physical switches that controlled their backup systems. Transferring to secondary power now. Throughout Earth's small fleet, crews performed similar actions with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, all human ships had restored full functionality while the alien vessels remained disabled. Commander Martinez opened a channel to Admiral Gonzalez. "Sir, all Earth ships report operational status maintained. We are proceeding with Phase 3. On Earth, Gonzalez allowed himself a small smile. "Proceed, Commander. Show them what humans can do." The Confederation observers watched in confusion as Earth's primitive fleet began moving with purpose through the disabled alien armadas. The small, ungainly human ships weaved between the elegant but powerless alien vessels. Admiral Exor Lath, who had been observing the exercise, turned to his aide with a puzzled expression. "How are they still functioning? Their technology is inferior to ours." "It seems," the aide replied slowly, "that their ships were built with EMP resistance as a standard feature." "But why would they?" Lath paused as understanding dawned. "They built their fleet expecting the worst." Lieutenant Commander Gary Wright watched his tactical display as the simulated EMP affected the alien fleets. While most Confederation ships floated powerless, his small group of vessels had been waiting for this moment. "All units, power up and begin operation," Wright ordered. "Remember, we only have about 20 minutes before they recover." The human ships that had been drifting like debris suddenly came to life. Engines glowed as they moved with purpose through the disabled enemy formations. Meanwhile, The drones they had planted began broadcasting confusing signals that made it appear as if ships were in positions where they weren't. "Sir, we're in position behind our command group," reported Lieutenant Amy Pottle. "Simulated targeting solutions ready." "Fire," Wright commanded. The human vessels launched training torpedoes toward the flagship of the opposing blue team. In a real battle, these would have been devastating. For the exercise, they simply tagged targets as destroyed for scoring purposes. Elsewhere in the battlefield, Captain Donna Lee and the U.S. Valiant suddenly stopped their chaotic movements. The ship that had appeared broken and confused now moved with precision and purpose. "Deploy the microcraft," Lee ordered. The sides of the Valiant opened to reveal hidden bays. Small, one-person craft launched into space. These vessels were too tiny to be considered serious warships by Confederation standards, but they had been part of Earth's naval doctrine for centuries. Lieutenant Kate Williams led the squadron of 12 microcraft. "Firefly Squadron, form up and begin attack pattern Delta," she said into her comm. The microcraft zipped between the disabled alien ships, moving faster than anything the Confederation had in service. They were simple vessels with minimal weapons, but their speed and maneuverability made them nearly impossible to hit. On the Confederation command ship, which remained operational as an exercise controller, General Kravax watched in growing confusion. "What are those?" he demanded, pointing at the small craft appearing on his sensors. "They appear to be fighters of some kind," replied his tactical officer. "Launched from the human vessels." "Fighters? In space?" Kravax's neck frill expanded in surprise. "That's an obsolete concept. No advanced civilization uses small craft for space combat." Yet the results were unmistakable. As the exercise's scoring system tracked hits and misses, the human fighters were recording hit rates far above what conventional wisdom said was possible. The small craft could change direction instantly, making them unpredictable targets. Meanwhile, Wright's ships continued their surprise attack from behind. The opposing fleet's rear guard had been completely eliminated in simulation before they even knew what happened. "Blue Team command ship targeted and destroyed," announced Patil as their training torpedoes registered direct hits. Wright allowed himself a small smile. "Begin Phase 4. Target their communication relays." The human ships moved with precision, hitting crucial targets that would, in real combat, cut off communications between enemy vessels. It was a tactic born from Earth's long history of naval warfare. Isolate, confuse, then destroy. On the observation deck, Admiral Exorlath watched with growing interest. The human ships that had seemed so clunky and primitive were systematically dismantling their opponents using tactics no one in the Confederation had considered. "They're fighting asymmetrically," he said to his aide. "Not trying to match our firepower, but targeting weaknesses instead." "It's undignified," the aide replied. "Military doctrine established over thousands of years says large capital ships should engage at optimal distances." And yet, Exorlath noted, "They're winning." As the exercise timer counted down, Lieutenant Williams and her microcraft squadron darted between the now recovering alien vessels. The small craft were targeting the simulated bridge sections, scoring points that would count as command casualties in the exercise scoring. "This is Firefly Leader," Williams reported. "All primary targets neutralized." By the time the Confederation ships had recovered from the EMP simulation, they found themselves in disarray. Communications were confused by the human drones. Key vessels had been marked as destroyed, and the command structure was fractured. General Kravax stared at the tactical display in silence. The elegant formations of the alien fleets had been shattered by a handful of ugly, practical human ships. "They fight like barbarians," he finally said, but there was new respect in his voice. The fleet exercise was reaching its final stages when urgent messages began flooding the command channels. Commander Olivia Martinez was reviewing the successful performance of Earth's ships when the emergency signal flashed on her screen. "Commander, we're receiving distress calls from Outpost Epsilon. reported Lieutenant Steve Collins. It's a Confederation colony in the neighboring system. Martinez frowned. Is this part of the exercise? No, Mom, Collins replied, his face grim. The outpost reports they're under attack by unknown vessels. The signal has proper emergency codes. The exercise came to an abrupt halt as the news spread. On the Confederation command ship, General Kravax gathered the fleet leaders for an emergency briefing. The Vrax Collective has launched a surprise attack on Outpost Epsilon, Kravax announced, his voice grave. This is not a drill. All operational vessels are ordered to respond immediately. The alien commanders looked at each other in concern. The Vrax were a secretive species from beyond Confederation space, rarely encountered but known to be aggressive. There's a problem, said Admiral Exorlath. Most of our ships are still resetting systems after the EMP simulation. Weapons and engines will need at least 2 hours to return to full capacity. Kravax's neck frill darkened with worry. Outpost Epsilon has over 5,000 civilians. They won't last 2 hours. Commander Martinez stepped forward. Earth's fleet is fully operational, General. We can respond immediately. The room fell silent. Kravax looked at her with disbelief. Your vessels, against the Vrax, he said. Their technology is far superior to what you possess. They would destroy your fleet in minutes. With respect, General, Martinez replied firmly. Our ships are battle-ready right now. No one else is. Admiral Exorlath studied the human commander thoughtfully. Your performance in the exercise was unexpected. But this is real combat against a formidable enemy. Martinez stood her ground. Our ships may not be pretty, but they're built to take a beating and keep fighting. That's what humans do. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Exorlath turned to Kravax. The humans should go. They're our only option until our main fleet recovers. Kravax's frill rippled with agitation, but he nodded reluctantly. Very well. Commander Martinez, your fleet is authorized to engage the enemy. But I strongly advise caution. The Vrax ships outclass yours in every category. We'll keep that in mind, Martinez said as she left to prepare her ships. Back on the U.S. Defiant, Martinez gathered her officers for a rapid briefing. The situation is this. Outpost Epsilon is under attack by multiple Vrax ships. They have superior weapons, shields, and speed compared to us. We're outnumbered and outgunned. She paused, looking at each officer in turn. But we're going anyway. What's our strategy, Commander? Asked Lieutenant Commander Wright. The same one that worked in the exercise. Asymmetric warfare. We use what they don't expect. As the briefing continued, Chief Medical Officer Lisa Brown prepared the ship's medical bay. Unlike the sleek, automated medical facilities on Confederation ships, the human medical bay was designed for mass casualties with old-fashioned equipment that could work without power if needed. A Confederation medical officer named Trell had come aboard to observe and looked around with surprise. Your medical facilities seem prepared for significant casualties, Trell noted. We've always known what war really looks like, Brown replied as she checked supplies. We've been doing it to ourselves for millennia. The Earth fleet prepared to jump to Outpost Epsilon. 12 human ships against an unknown number of technically superior enemy vessels. As the countdown to departure began, Admiral Exorlath sent a message to Commander Martinez. Commander, I must ask, your ships were designed for actual warfare, weren't they? Not for parades or fleet reviews. Martinez smiled grimly as she replied. They were designed by people who know that space is trying to kill you, and sometimes other people are too. The Earth fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading toward a battle most thought they couldn't win. Earth's fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Outpost Epsilon. The scene before them was chaos. 3 large Vrax warships surrounded the small colony station. Their purple energy weapons fired repeatedly at the station's failing shields. Status report. Commander Martinez ordered as the Defiant took position. Outpost shields at 12%. reported Lieutenant Collins. Life support failing in sections 3 through 7. Enemy vessels show no damage. Martinez studied the tactical display. The Vrax ships were sleek and powerful, easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest vessel. Their weapons technology was clearly superior. All ships, this is Commander Martinez. Spread out and engage. Remember your training. The human fleet moved into action. Unlike the precise formations favored by the Confederation, Earth's ships scattered in seemingly random patterns. On the U.S. Relentless, Dr. Susan Kelly watched her engineering displays turn red as they took their first hit from a Vrax weapon. Shield generators 1 and 2 are fried, reported Ben Harris. Kelly nodded calmly. Switch to backups 3 and 4. Reroute power from non-essential systems. The Relentless shuddered but kept fighting. The ship had been designed with the expectation of damage. When systems failed, alternates took over. Lieutenant Kate Williams led her microcraft squadron between the massive Vrax ships. The tiny vessels were almost impossible for the alien targeting systems to lock onto. Firefly Squadron, target their sensor arrays, Williams ordered. Use pattern Omega-6. The human microcraft darted around the Vrax vessels like mosquitoes around elephants. They fired precise shots at small, vulnerable points, cooling vents, sensor nodes, communication arrays. None of these hits would destroy the enemy ships, but together they created dozens of small failures that began to add up. On the main Vrax warship, the alien commander struggled to track the strange human tactics. They attack like insects, he hissed to his second-in-command. No logic to their movements. But there was logic, a human logic born from centuries of warfare against other humans. The Earth ships attacked from unexpected angles, retreated when targeted, and concentrated fire on the same spots to overwhelm local shields. Captain Rick Martinez on the U.S. Relentless saw an opportunity as his ship took heavy damage. Engineering. How much power can you give me if we shut down everything else? About 300% of normal output for maybe 30 seconds, Dr. Kelly replied. But it will fry every system we have. Do it, Martinez ordered. On my mark. The Relentless swung around behind the largest Vrax ship, aiming for its propulsion systems. As the enemy began to turn, Martinez gave the order. Now. The human ship's power core surged dangerously. Every light and system not required for the attack shut down. Life support fell to emergency levels. The Relentless fired all weapons simultaneously in a massive burst that no engineer would consider safe or sustainable. The concentrated fire punched through the Vrax ship's rear shields. Critical systems exploded across the alien vessel, leaving it drifting and powerless. Back at the Confederation Command Center, General Krivax and Admiral Hexorlath watched the battle through long-range sensors. They're fighting in a way I've never seen, Krivax admitted, his earlier dismissiveness gone. Hexorlath nodded. They don't fight like a species that has achieved peace. They fight like one that knows war intimately. On the battlefield, the remaining Vrax ships began to retreat as more of their systems failed under the relentless human assault. Earth's ships had taken heavy damage. 3 were completely disabled and the others showed damage to hull and systems, but they had won. Enemy vessels retreating. Collins reported on the Defiance Bridge. Outpost Epsilon reports they're stabilizing life support. Commander Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Begin rescue operations, and get me a damage report. 2 days later, when the Confederation fleet finally arrived, they found the human ships still there, battered but functional. Their ugly, practical designs had proven themselves in actual combat. Admiral Hexorlath approached Commander Martinez as she supervised repairs. The Confederation Council has sent a formal request, he said. We would like to integrate human design principles into our next generation of warships. Martinez raised an eyebrow. I thought our ships were primitive. We've been part of an interstellar community for 10,000 years. Hexorlath admitted. We forgot what it's like to face the unknown, to prepare for the worst. You humans never had that luxury. Martinez looked out at her damaged but victorious fleet. "In space, everything is trying to kill you," she said simply. "We just designed accordingly."